guys, it's Kaylee. I'm back with another What Sold from Last Week video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over sales that happened in my stores on eBay, Poshmark, and Depop. So if you're a reseller who's interested in learning what's selling fast and quickly every week, then join me for these weekly What Sold videos. All right, I had a little bit of a slower week last week, kind of a weird week actually. I sold quite a few things, but a lot of them were older. So I had a lot of stuff that took forever to sell. And then the stuff that was higher dollar was also older stuff. So you'll see as we get to it. But this was some of my fastest sales. This first one was a hatch, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe is sold at Anthropologie sometimes. This is a hatch women's modal blend, which if you don't know that fabric, modal, it's super soft. So a lot of people like it. This was a pajama set in a size medium. I actually only had these two pictures and made ChatGPT make this collage for me after the fact. And I think that really helped to sell it. So anytime you have a set, make sure that they are paired together in the main cover photo so your buyer knows exactly what they're getting. Even if they're set in the title, they might think it's just a single. So I had this listed, I think, originally for around $45. It sold within just one day of being listed for an offer of $38. And after fees on the platform, my order earnings was $30.40 on this item. Another super quick sale. Some of these even surprised me. This sold within just one day as well, and it is Old Navy, which if you guys remember, Old Navy last year was my number one selling brand. Sold a ton of this brand, and it continues to be a really good one for us to factor stack and style-based flip. This was a vintage Y2K women's top. This was a really pretty one that could lean into a whole lot of different aesthetics that are trending right now, such as Y2K, cottagecore. This could even go into whimsy goth or fairy grunge. So this was a very specific key piece in a lot of different aesthetic outfits, which is why I think it sold so quickly, despite it was just Old Navy. Like I said, it sold within just one day, and you can see there are over 100 likes on this item, and it sold in one day, guys. Think about that. One day, over 100 likes. It could be multiple hundreds. I can't remember. Depop stops after 99 plus, and had over 5,000 views as well. So really big interest on an Old Navy piece, and that's why I love style-based sourcing. This one I listed for $30. It sold on an offer for $24, and it sold with an order earnings of $22.46 out of 24. So I also really like flipping on Depop. I like flipping anything, but I really love selling my bread and butter pieces there, because the fees are so low that bread and butter can sometimes yield you more net profits than maybe a higher sale on some of the other platforms where my fees are significantly higher. So made $22.46 off of this top. Next up, another Depop sale. This sold in 8 days. This actually sold in a bundle. So this is one out of the two pieces. And I did my best to kind of like average how much each one sold for. So this is a pair of J. Crew men's corduroy pants. These were the style 770, which doesn't mean much to me, but men's corduroy pants for fall and winter, very trendy and can fall into a lot of different aesthetics such as preppy, business casual, academia, lots of different things you can put it under. So these ones I had listed for $35. J. Crew is one of my better brands to sell men's corduroy pants in. And this sold on an offer to Watcher for $29.75. By the way, I get asked this a lot. I have Nifty automatically sending out offers on each different platform, and you can change like when you want it sent and how much for each individual platform. So I have that set up for all of mine. So this one sold on one of those automatic Nifty offers, and my earnings were $26.44 as an average between each of the items on the bundle. Next up, another super quick sale. This sold within just 2 days. This is very bread and butter for me. This is the brand Sag Harbor. Not a good brand to look for, but I love selling deep, rich florals in velvet. Velvet is one of my better selling materials during fall and winter. This sold within just 2 days. I listed it for $29 on Poshmark. I was expecting around 20 to 25, and someone sent me an offer for 20, which I went ahead and accepted to move it quickly, especially because, again, this isn't really a special piece. It's just a quick factor stacking one. And my my earnings were $15.60. Next up, another quick style-based piece. This is the brand Luna Ivy. They're well known for sweaters like this where they have really interesting details. However, the sell-through rate is really, really low. So I priced lower accordingly. This took just 8 days to sell. I listed for 30 on Poshmark, was again expecting between 20 and 25. Somebody sent me an offer for 20 and I accepted to get that thing moving because again, with the low sell-through rate on this, I consider it more of a style-based piece. And this sold for an order earnings of $16 after fees. I use keywords on this like twee, kid cord teacher, and rainbow. Oh, apparently we put rainbow in here twice. It is very rainbow. Anytime I see any colorful rainbow style items, I usually lean into like the teacher, the twee aesthetic, and it significantly increases value. And I always make sure to put rainbow in the title as well. All right, here is a higher price sale and also sold quickly. This is a Tommy Bahama men's suede leather jacket. This sold within just 12 days of being listed. I listed for $50 on eBay. There was some wear throughout, otherwise I probably would have listed this higher. And it sold on an offer to watcher for $44.30. My earnings were $34.34. I do promote on eBay. So compared to Depop, they take a bigger chunk out of my net profits. If you see any kind of men's leather or suede jackets, they're always worth looking up. A lot of times thrift stores price them really high, but if they're not a well-known brand, such as, I don't even know if well-known brand is the right words, but I don't know, one that's not known for being higher end, such as Eddie Bauer. Eddie Bauer is not one that my thrift stores personally price up a lot, probably because we sell a lot of it here in the mountainous regions. But if you find an Eddie Bauer leather jacket, check comps on it because a lot of times there's some really good bolos in there, and thrift stores, even though they're leather, don't always price them up. So see a ton of people pass on coats and jackets at the bins because they're so heavy. But even with weight of these things, you're probably still only paying $5 to $6. It's totally worth it. So make sure to check your comps. Leathers and suedes, very trendy right now in the men's department. In certain styles. So this one was kind of more of a military style. It was lined. It didn't really need a whole lot of aesthetic keywords just because it was Tommy Bahama, which people do look for. So again, order earnings $34.34 on this one. This next one was also a super quick sale, very bread and butter. This one was completely unbranded. It sold in just 13 days. I like picking up these artsy, stretchy tops. This one had a great print to it. A lot of times with tops like this, you have to be careful because they can lean very mature, and that's not the buyer that I'm trying to market to. So this one I thought had a young enough print and the silhouette was not too mature. My keywords for this were whimsy goth, dark fairy, stretch, Y2K, 90s grunge, and I included Phoebe because I could see Phoebe Buffet wearing this from Friends. So sold within just 13 days. I listed for 25. It sold for an offer to watcher of $21.15 and my earnings were $14.93. Lots and lots of bread and butter this week, which kind of makes sense because last week I think I had like really high ASP, lots of like higher price things were selling, so it all evens out. Okay, another really bread and butter item that sold in just 2 weeks, 14 days. This is an Old Navy men's waffle thermal shirt. I listed this for $24.88. It did sell for my full asking price, and my earnings were $19.20 on this. I've talked about men's thermal shirts before. I was actually nervous that this one wouldn't sell just because it says Eastern Conference NYC, and that seems like a very specific thing that people would be looking for. But surprisingly, it did sell super quickly. So men's thermal shirts are selling really well for me still. I am going to slow down on a lot of this winter stuff. So my winter bread and butter stuff that I look for, such as men's corduroy pants that I've mentioned, men's thermal shirts, and some of the other stuff I've talked about, I am slowing down on just because buyers are, starting to purchase spring stuff and they're going to heavily move into that season very soon. Okay, the next few items are going to be some of my higher price sales. The funny thing about these is I couldn't decide, do I put them in the higher price sales? Do I put them in the stuff I wouldn't pick up again? Because to be honest with you, there was a lot of these that I was like, man, They sold for a lot, but I wouldn't pick them up again. So I went ahead and put them in the high ASP ones, and also included a small portion at the end. But you'll see why here in a second. Even though I made a lot of money on them, there's a few that I still wouldn't pick up again. All right, it is this one. If you recognize this, it's because this dress has been returned to me twice for fit, and I can't tell if they are wearing it somehow and then returning it, or if it really is just the fit. But this one is new with tags. It does have a couple of like small spots on it though. My title for this is Vintage 9 West Women's Silk Midi Dress, size 6, pink, HOCO, which stands for Homecoming, Formal, Event, Y2K, and Fairy. Honestly, this dress, top notch. Like perfect silhouette, perfect color, like everything a buyer is looking for. But I do think it fits a little small, which vintage stuff, even Y2K, sometimes is made a little bit smaller. And I think that this being returned multiple times for fit is like the reason it keeps coming back. So we added more measurements and we're very clear in the listing. So I am praying that this doesn't come back. If I never see it again, it'll be a good thing. This one, it took 126 days to sell this time after being relisted for the second time. And it sold on an offer for $115. My earnings were $82.71. If I ever see a dress like this again, probably not picking it up. It's been a nightmare. All right, next up, this is another one that sold for a lot of money, but I've had for a long time. And for whatever reason, it just would not move no matter how many times we reworked it. I finally ended up putting it on an AI model to show like it on someone and what event they might wear it to. And that does seem like that's what sold it. This nightcap dress took 122 days to sell, and it ended up selling on an offer for $85. My earnings were $68. This is a great style-based piece, and honestly, this brand Nightcap is like a more designer-ish brand. However, sell-through rate's really low. I probably should have priced this lower to begin with. All right, this one was actually really good. I have nothing bad to say about this one. This is a Patricia Nash, which is a Bolo brand. Here is her logo. She makes a lot of high quality leather goods. They tend to be like Western boho. And yeah, I love finding Patricia Nash. I found this one surprisingly at a thrift store for a regular price of $5.99. With Patricia Nash, I always look up the exact style name by doing a Google lens. And this was called the Ferrera Satchel Bag, which had a really good sell-through rate. I paid $5.99 for this. It sold in just 52 days for an offer to watcher of $50.90, and my earnings were $37.72. Another higher price sale, not as high as last week. I'm looking at like the $40 and $50. I'm like, these don't even seem like a lot compared to last week, but they were some of my highest. This is a pair of Farm Rio joggers. These I also had for quite a while, 72 days, still within my 90-day window, but towards the end there. Farm Rio is a Bolo brand I like looking for. They're known for their really rich prints, resort wear looking things. These ones on Depop they sold, which again, don't assume that it's just vintage Y2K stuff that sells on Depop. They also look for name brands. And so here's an example of that. These ones I listed for $54. They sold on an offer for $45, and my earnings were $39.20. Another higher price sale. This was another item that took way too long. This took 121 days to sell. It is a Vintage Express. I love selling Vintage Express. A lot of their stuff's really nice style-wise, so it is a tag I get excited to find. This dress was just lacking in a lot of features. It was a beautiful Y2K dress, had that empire waist. It was floral, but I think the colorway on this was throwing people off. It couldn't be leaned heavily into one aesthetic. Fairy is really the only aesthetic that I could see leaning it into, and the florals for me were just leaning it more into preppy. This one I listed for around $45. It did sell for my full asking price, and the earnings were $33.23. Another one that sold for a higher ASP. This is also a gorgeous so gorgeous dress. I actually borrowed this dress for Posh Fest. It is a beautiful Y2K dress. This one does have some gorgeous features. Beading, it's asymmetric, it's dark floral, it's got the cowl. This one, I think I just got really excited and priced this way too high in the beginning. So this one took 112 days to sell, just a little over my 90-day goal. And I listed this closer like $75 originally and then dropped the price because it was past 90 days. Someone sent me an offer for $42, which I happily accepted. And my earnings were $36.36 for my store. And this doesn't need to be true for your store, but for my store, I've decided that once something becomes 90 days old, I am moving it at all costs. So if I would have received an offer for $20 on this, I probably would have accepted that. So 42 was really good. All right, here is an item that actually did sell really quickly and also one of my higher ASP sales. This is another category that I'm going to slow down on. They are the dressy, longer length coats. These always do well for me for fall and winter. This is the brand Joseph Feiss. Not a brand you want to memorize. However, this was a cashmere coat, so cashmere blend. And cashmere wool, doesn't matter what it is, longer length dressier coats like this, style-wise, always flip super quickly for me. This one I had listed for $60 on Depop. I received an offer for $40 and it sold within 36 days. I did accept that offer of $40, which is probably lower than maybe some of you would accept, but knowing that we're moving into warmer weather and the window of time to sell the winter items is closing very quickly, so $40 to me was great and I decided to move it. My earnings out of that $40 was $37.90, and that's why I love selling on Depop. All right, another one, and then I'll move into 3 things I wouldn't pick up again. Although, again, some of those higher ASP ones, I wouldn't pick those up again just because I've had such bad experiences with returns. This one was a good one also. This sold within just 41 days. It is an LL Bean sweater. LL Bean is a great brand for not only bread and butter, but also some bolos. And if you ever see an item that looks a little bit more unique, such as Fair Isle print, you can always look up the item ID. It's very easy to look up the style name. This one was called the Fair Isle Cotton Rag Open Front Cardigan, had a great sell-through rate. This sold within just 41 days on an offer to Watcher for around $38, and my earnings were $27.38. All right, now moving on to things that took forever to sell that I wouldn't pick up again. Luckily, none of these I lost money on. This first one is no-name brand Positive Attitude. This was a true Y2K dress. This one's been listed for almost a year, 278 days. The reason that this one I think sat so long is because it's too mature looking. So it has some great details. It's very flowy. It's asymmetric. It's dark, but the floral doesn't really lean into like whimsy goth or fairy grunge or anything, enough. I can lean it into those, but to me it looks a little bit more tropical. And so for that reason, I think this one sat with it also looking a little bit too mature. So this one I accepted an offer of $22 on and my earnings were $17.60. Again, didn't lose money, but my initial investment has been tied up for almost a year and I am trying to prevent that. Another one that took forever, this one has been listed for 174 days. This is also a no-name brand. I picked this up on Style alone. This one actually does have a really great silhouette. It's got that milkmaid look to it, and I have sold dresses like this pretty regularly. This one was listed in summer, and then we moved into fall, and I think the reason it didn't move is because it is more of a summery spring print in color. There's like little I don't know what flower that is, but you get the point. Looks very spring summerish and it does not have length on the bottom. The sleeves are not long. And so to sell that in the dead of winter, just a lot of things going against it. So this ended up selling on an offer for $20, which I accepted. And my earnings were $16. I would pick something up like this again. However, I would just make it more seasonal appropriate. So longer length, better color, but the silhouette of this one is pretty good. Okay, and lastly is an Under Armour shirt. I don't pick up a ton of Under Armour. I did a deep dive here on my channel, actually. If you want to watch it, you can look up Cayley, Elaine, Under Armour. I do deep dives on brands that I frequently come across because there are bolos in everything. And Under Armour does have a lot of bolos. A lot of their bolos that sell are the Project Rock, which is a line that they sell. This is a t-shirt, however, and usually the t-shirts don't have a very high sell-through rate. I took a chance on this one just because the graphic was a little bit better with the wolf print. And I wish I wouldn't have done that because it sat for 127 days. It did end up selling for my full asking price of around $25 and my earnings were $20.67. However, I paid around $4 for this, so it's just not meeting my business model, not selling within 90 days. Had I priced this at 20, it probably would have moved within a month, but I'm going to be more cautious, making sure I pick up the substantial pieces in Project Rock. All right, guys, so that's it for what sold last week. I hope that you all enjoyed watching. Let me know how sales are going for you down below. Do you have a sale that you were really excited about that sold super quickly? Or are there some like me that you regret? Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.